Welcome back to Matt's haircut videos. And we're going to be doing a haircut, and I think he has a picture he wants me to check out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted basically this haircut right
Okay.
here.
All right, that's cool. Go ahead and capture that there for me, please.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. So what that looks like to me is an undercut.
Yes.
So basically you want it kind of nice and long on top to where it's going to kind of overhang a little bit. Mm-hmm. So what we got to do for now is just leave this nice and long, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then for now, in the meantime, we're just going to start fading in on the sides, and we're going to take it nice and low. What kind of length do you want to use on the sides? Like a number 1 or 2 or 0?
I was thinking the 0 right here and kind of taper the way up since the hair on top isn't as long.
Okay, all right, cool, right on. So let's get started here. So what I'm going to do first is we're going to just leave the top for last, and I'm going to do most of my work on the sides here. Okay, so I'm going to start by just kind of blending it in. And the lengths that I'm going to use, I'm probably going to use a little bit of number 2. I'm going to use 1.5, a little bit of 1. And right at the bottom, right at the very bottom, I'm going to use 0. And I'm going to use just basically the same format and system that I've been using for the past couple videos. And if anybody has any questions or suggestions or want to know if there's a different method or way of doing, which there is, and for demonstration purposes, I'd be happy to demonstrate that for you as well. So we're just going to get started here. And I'm just combing through the hair first. I like to comb through the hair. And we're going to start with like a number 2 guard. Again, I'm going to be using my Oster with the number 2. And the purpose of this is to just remove heavy bulk. Because the picture, as we saw, it's an extremely long top and very short on the sides. But sometimes if we go directly into just making an undercut and cutting all of this off, this top is going to look a little bit silly because it's actually too short for that haircut right now. So what we're going to do is begin the process of achieving that undercut length. For example, in another month when he comes back for a haircut, his hair is going to be about another 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch longer, and then recut his sides as the top grows longer. So that's the goal. But for now, I'm going to establish kind of a low, natural fade here. Just keeping it low and natural in the meantime to establish a future longer undercut. Because that's basically what that hairstyle is. It's called an undercut. So I'm going to keep it nice and low here. Oh. So as you can tell, I'm using a number 2, and I'm just kind of keeping it over the ears here. You can lift your head up a little bit, sir. Thank you. Knowing that eventually he's going to have a tight fade going up this way, but I'm just going to work under here, just like that. And leaving this ridge here for now, just for the meantime, because I'm going to be tapering that and kind of blending that down, clipper over comb. Alright. So now that I have number 2 kind of established here, removing the bulk from the sides, keeping in mind that eventually it's going to be super long on top, I'm going to drop this down. The next length I'm going to use a number 1 on the Oster here. And I'm just going to cut into my 2, kind of in a tapering motion here. Versus just kind of just jamming in and going way here. I'm just kind of doing a tapered motion underneath the number 2 and kind of just working that in there. This is going to be a really nice, aggressively tight tapered haircut for the meantime. Same going here. Notice I'm not going straight up like this. I'm kind of on an angle like this. And see how that works nicely there. Because that's the essence of a tight tapered haircut, is that it's always shorter, real tight around the sideburn and neckline here. I'm going to pull his ear down just a little bit here. And just establish that number 1. Working into that number 2. Okay, this way. Same thing over here. If you notice the number 1 is on an angle, I'm kind of just working it in that way. Just like that. Now, throughout this process, what happens is there's going to be a little bit of darkness right here. And if I want to, I can use the length of a 1.5 or just another clipper to help me remove some of this darkness, but that's for later. I'm still working number 1 into 2 here. Number 1 into 2. And if I wanted to start blending right now, I could with this number 1 on the Oscar, or use another clipper that I'm more comfortable with to assist me with that. Either or, I'm going to get to that a little later. But right now, I'm going to focus on getting that 0 and just cutting the remainder of this hair into 1 now with 0. There's many different types of zeros I could use. For example, one of these edgers right here is good enough to be considered as a 0. As you can see here, I'm using an edger to cut the 0 in on that. Just giving rid of all of this hair here, this excess hair. And I could be blending in with later on with another length. See, I can use this clipper, this one here, which is an edger. Or I can use a different type of clipper. This is technically a trimmer, but it takes it as close as a 0. And it's gonna do just the same thing I was doing with the edger, if you can see here. So however you want to do it, there's more than one way to kill a cat, and there's more than one way to kill a dog. There's more than one way to cut a head of hair. Okay, so here's that 0. And I'm working it into that 1, that number 1. Okay. So we technically have 0, we have 1, and we have a little bit of 2. And the rest of the work is just pure retouch and blending in. Here's that 0 again on the sideburn area into 1. Just like that. All right. So I'm going to use this detailer again, and I'm going to kind of pull his ear out of the way, and I'm going to work some detail work here. Because now the bulk is kind of gone. How's that looking so far, Luis? You see how I'm taking it nice and low and clean there?
Oh, yeah.
How's that looking to your opinion there?
That's looking good. That's mighty fresh.
Okay. All right. So what I just gave rid of the bulk. I used 2, I used 1, and I used 0. Now I'm going to kind of blend in the haircut. I'm just going to kind of work on it a little bit in detail here. Okay. So again, this is equivalent to a 0. And there's always these fine little shades that we're going to work into here. Move the ear out of the way. Because even though I could technically use that other clipper, but it's a little bit noisy and heavy and sharp around this area. And yes, I am using a mixture and a combination of different lengths and different clippers of also the same length. So here it is here. And what we have here is like a little line there, and I'm going to be working that out with another clipper. Moving the ear out of the way. I'm just making sure this area is nice and clean here. There we go. I'm just working that in there. Okay, so now is a good time to bring in a little brush. These little brushes are very helpful and they're not too aggressive on the skin. They're kind of soft here. This is a nice little brush. People use different kinds, this size or this size here. Or, you know, the neck duster's okay. The neck duster's designed to kind of get excess hair out of the way, but sometimes someone will press on their neck duster just like this, just to kind of get a finer brush, but it's the same thing as this one here. So I'm going to use this brush just to kind of comb off the excess hair. And this is going to expose and help me see a little bit more clearer what needs to be blended in. Same on this side. And that's just kind of, it's like cleanup work. We're just kind of cleaning this up here. Clean up behind the ear. So I'm going to use my Andes Master. This is a flat blade right here. This is a really good blade to use to kind of blend off pretty rough, hard lining here. And then I'm going to use this, the same clipper, to work on the blend. Keeping in mind that he eventually wants his top nice and long, and even there just might be an overhang even now. So I'll kind of just be considerate of that and just work around that. And just kind of working in there. Just kind of blending that in. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pause for a moment, and I recommend this for people who are students or barbers who've just been in the industry for a while and want some tips and tricks on how to get better results with your haircut, with the execution, as far as doing what the customer expects or asks of you. So I'm going to pause for a moment. I'm going to show the mirror to Luis, and we're going to discuss what's going on here so far. Okay, my buddy, here's the mirror there. Let's grab that and take a look at this side and give me your suggestion on that, on how you feel about how low I went there.
I think you went low enough, honestly. It's pretty well faded in. The taper's good.
Okay.
You know, obviously, I can't wait for part 2.
All right, yep. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the reason why I showed Luis the mirror is so that just to give an engagement with the customer, like a little bit of back and forth, to like let them know that, hey, I'm here and I just want to take a moment to stop and see what you think. And just to have a little bit of communication throughout the process of the haircut. Okay. So I'm going to keep going on this side here. You could just tilt your head a little bit here, my friend. Thank you, thank you. And I'm going to work on this area here. And just kind of fade this in. Keeping in mind that his top eventually wants to get really long. So I don't need to go too aggressively high as far as this crown area right here. Because eventually, most of this is going to be cut off. This is going to be cut off in the future. And this is going to be longer, and it's going to be overhanging and pretty long. All right. This side as well. I'm just going to be doing some natural blending here. And this is just doing some detailed double checking work after going over with number 2, removing a lot of bulk. Number 1 is mixed in here, 0 is mixed in here. And I kind of just doing a finishing job, just finishing here. Clipper over comb is what the technical term is. Clipper over comb. Turn your head this way here, sir. Thank you. And one thing that I'm not doing is kind of just going straight up on it again. If you notice the angle of my clipper, look at the angle of that right there. See? That's just kind of going with the flow that I established with the clippers beforehand. There we go. Just like that. Okay, so I'm going to start wetting the top. I'm going to work my way to the top. And real quick, I'm going to show Luis what the back looks like here, okay? And I'm just going to hold it here for you. And if you can see the back, how low and tight I left that there for you.
Yeah. Here, angle it a little bit better. I can't see it from the light. Oh, okay. Yeah, that looks good. That looks
okay.
Good.
All right. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to wet your hair on top here, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. So as far as his top, I'm gonna be wetting it here, and I'm gonna wet it down real good, just like I normally do. And I'm just gonna wet it down real good. You know how I work, but don't wet them down like a dog. You know, I don't do that. I don't wet people down like dogs. And I like to wet the hair real good, real good. Just wet the hair nice and even all the way around. It's just a kind of a natural human wet, just something that he can sustain and not a shower or nothing. Okay. So, even though he's leaving his top long, and his goal is to wear a longer top, I do recommend, with the customer's permission, is to check the top, take a look at it, inform the customer the condition of the top. Because naturally the idea is I'm going to let my top grow out long, don't touch it, don't cut it, but what happens over the course of the few weeks, months, depending on how long your customer lets his top grow, he will find that sometimes the top is left uneven or maybe texturized from the past, and we agreed that we're just going to cut just a smidget off here, just a tiny bit. So I'm going to start again with the same process, just establishing my guide here in the middle, pushing straight up and just taking that tiny bit off. That's all I'm taking off. It's hardly nothing. Luis, can you see that?
Barely.
Yeah. Is that okay? That's all I'm taking off the top here, okay?
That's fine with me.
It's just a tiny bit. It won't do any bit of a damage. You won't notice a difference. It's hardly nothing. And the reason why I showed it to my customer is to kind of give them that security and comfort that I am not cutting the top. All I'm doing is just killing the itty bitty ends, which is hardly nothing. It's such an embarrassing thing when a customer says, I want my hair cut this way, but don't cut the top. And then the barber starts cutting the top anyways. That's horrible. But to give them that assurance, I showed them exactly what I'm cutting off. And it's that amount right there. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I went through the middle. I worked my way forward through the middle. Now I'm going to come this way, lift up, and just take a little bit off. There you go. Just a little bit. So I just did the middle, did this side. Now I'm going to do this side. Same thing. Going forward. Just taking a little bit off here. Tiny bit. Hardly nothing. Alright. So this is going to grow out nicely here. Chances are, as his hair grows out, because he has a natural tendency to part here, and it'll just start parting on its own there. Okay. There we go. Okay. So that's it for the top there. Mm-hmm.